Welcome back everyone to Angela's Craft Room. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really cute note card tote bag. It's very easy to make. Now this is the matching note cards that I made to go with them. So my most important thing I wanted to tell you, the most economical way, instead of cutting up all your note cards, is Stampin' Up! Have a pack of 20 note cards and matching envelopes, so you get the proper size envelopes for your note cards, and that's 20 envelopes and 20 pre-cut note cards, and they're scored as well, and they're $10.50 Australian dollars. And so I normally do a set of 5 note cards, so I'm getting 4 sets out of that, so that's pretty good value. So with this one I've just used obviously the note cards from Stampin' Up! And the Whisper white ones. They do come in very vanilla now as well. So from the floral statement stamp set, I've just stamped out the word thanks and adhered that to a piece of Night of Navy cardstock, and then just adhered that to the note card. And then inside, and I will give you a tip of a cheaper version, instead of putting another piece of cardstock inside, just use a piece of photocopying paper, and I will go through all the measurements for you. So that's those there, and then I just tied one of the new ribbons round the 5 note cards and envelopes, and that just goes to the back. It just presents it a bit nicely when it's in order. And then I've just popped those in there, and I've just tied a little piece of ribbon on the outside just as a finishing touch, and of course popped my business card in there for my customer. So to start with, what we need is, in this video we're just going to make the tote bag, and then the next video we'll do the note cards. So you need a piece of designer series paper, which is 4 inches by 12 inches. Now this is from the new designer series paper pack Coffee Break. So it has quite a lot of nice I feel male themed colours in this pack. So we're going to be making a male themed tote bag and note cards for this time. So that's 4 inches by 12 inches. And then we need 3 pieces of trim, this is just the opposite side of that. So we need 3 pieces of trim, and they measure 12 inches by ½ inch. So that's 3 of them, 12 inches by half of an inch. Okay, so we'll just put them to the side. And then the handles, I've used Early Espresso cardstock, and for the handles they measure 8½ inches long by ½ inch wide. So you need 2 of those for your handle. And then the bottom of your tote bag, it measures 5¼ inches by 2½, and then you're just going to be scoring ½ inch on each side. With this I find it a lot easier to use my scoring board. So, and then we're just going to need some little brads, and if you wanted to add ribbon, you could add ribbon. I mostly use tear and tape and multi-purpose liquid glue to create this. So we'll do the tote bag. So we'll start off with this. We've got our bottom of our tote bag, which is 5¼ inches by 2½ inches. And then I've put it on my scoring board, and I've scored it at ½ inch on each side. So you put it there, score it at the 1/2 inch mark, turn it, score it again at the 1/2 inch mark, turn it, score it again at the 1/2 inch mark, and then lastly just down that side at 1/2 inch mark. Then you can see the score lines there. So on the corners I'm just going to be cutting up to this big score line here. So I like just to not so much with my bone folder, but just to start with, just fold those 4 corners. Now take my paper snips and I'm just going to snip on that score line just up to the first score line, so we can create the bottom of our tote bag. Okay, so then I would grab my bone folder and just give it a good crease. Like that. Now these little square pieces there, they're going to fold in. So we need to put a piece of tear and tape on each one of those. Now just pop it on there. Let's grab my scissors. Just like to use a pair of old scissors when I'm cutting my adhesive. Don't want to destroy my lovely brand new Stampin' Up paper snips that cut my ribbon so nicely. So we're just going to have a piece of tear and tape, and I would strongly recommend you use tear and tape. You can use multi-purpose liquid glue, but I just, on this part, I like tear and tape because I know it's going to hold my tote bag for quite a long time to come. So we're just going to peel off that last one, and then you'll see the bottom of the tote bag. So we're just going to fold that corner in, and fold the other corner in. Just line it up. You can see how I've got a little piece just up there. All I do then, if you really want to, is just snip that piece off. Now this is going to be covered with DSP, so it's, you know, it's not that fanatic that you need to be so perfect with this bottom piece. You just want to form the bottom to where the note cards are going to be sitting into. So once again, if you wanted to, and you could mitre them if you want to. I don't have much luck with my mitering, so I just think it's not really worth stressing over. So I'll just take that off, and that piece off. So there we've got our bottom piece of our tote bag. Wasn't that easy? Okay, so we'll set that aside. We actually won't. We'll actually bring that back, because now I want this to be on the outside. So I'm going to grab my tear and tape, and this needs to go on all 4 sides. Now I'm just going to put 1 strip. You can put 2, but I'm just going to put 1 strip along the bottom as straight as I can. Just let it go round the corner, round that corner. I found that with the first one I did that I showed you earlier, that I found just having the one piece going all the way around was quite enough. So then I'm just going to cut that off. Then I'm going to peel that off straight away. You just don't put it down while you're adhering the designer series paper to it. Now why I'm doing that is that's just where I started, and it just misses a little, where you start just misses that little bit of corner, and I just like to reinforce that. Okay, so what I do is I start in the middle at the back. So as I say, you can't put it down because it's going to stick to your surface. So what I do is I just line it up. Hope you can see what I'm doing. Just line it up to make a start. Now the tear and tape's quite adhesive, so you just give it a little press as you go and just take your time. Now I don't want on the corners, I don't want that to all I don't want a big crease up there. I want it to be like a bow effect, so that's why I'm not doing a big crease up the sides. So I'm just slowly going round and just lining up this bottom piece. Right. Now because I've got that down, I can pop it down on my surface, and then just going round the last corner, and you'll see what I mean by how I like to have a bow effect. It's just sticking to my fingers. Now when you get to that stage and we're on the last home run, we're just going to put a piece of tear and tape along here, okay, because that's where it's going to join to the other part of the designer series paper. So we'll just snip that off. And just going to pop that down there and just try and not let it stick until you're ready, and that way you can line it up at the top so it's nice and even. So that's like the bowed effect. Okay, so I just do a little pinch, and this is just where the bottom of the first part we made, the bottom part of the tote bag. So we just want to pinch on all corners just with our fingers, and then I just put my hand inside because I just want to keep that bow, like a little bow effect like that. Okay, so now we need to put a piece of tear and tape all the way around the bottom because we need to put our trim on. Now you could do this before you put it on here if you want to. It's up to you which way you want to do it. tricky one is when we have to put the piece inside, because we're putting trim over our brads. So we'll just peel that off. And I do apologise if I did go out of camera view for you there. So just peel that off as easy as that. And we're going to take one of our trims and just decide which way. I don't think it really matters, but so then we're just going to, actually I'll start from the back and we can have our join at the back. So just try and keep it flush to the bottom there as I'm going round. I'm just trying to get it to be as flush to the bottom as possible. So hopefully you can see. It's best to take your time with it, but they are very easy to make. I do quite a lot of these for orders. So that's just going to have, I could just cut that off there, but what I might do is just grab a bit more tear and tape and just put it on the flap. There. And then we're just going to pull that off. And let that stick down there. We know it's not going to come up with the tear and tape. So that's the trim around the bottom. So now we just need to put the trim round the top. And I want it to start about the same spot at the join at the back. So I'm just taking my time putting that tear and tape. That's why I didn't want to do the note cards in the same tutorial, because it would have been quite a long tutorial, and I do want to give you the measurements as I go. So just nearly finished. We're nearly there. So what I think I'll do this time is just pull that side of the tear and tape off a little bit, and that way I can overlap where it finishes and cut that off. So it's like that, and then we can just peel that off, and then we'll just pop on one end, just see which way I want to put that. So just on one end, if I can just get my hands off, just on one end, just put a piece of tear and tape so we don't have to be twisting ourselves at the end to get that to stick down. just put a couple of little bits. So I know if I use my tearing tape, it's not going to... I have made them using the multi-purpose liquid glue, but it is a bit messy. You just have to take your time. So now we're starting back on the seam. Oh, see what I did? I put that down onto my surface, not thinking. So this is the seam here. So we're just going to start at the top, the seam. And we're not going to put it down on our work surface. And we're just going to go round very slowly. Just adding our trim to the top. And then that was a lot easier by putting that tearing tape under the edge of the trim. So when we got to our center point at the back, it just glued down. So that's the tote bag part. So now we just need to add our 2 handles, which were 8.5 inch by 1.5 inch. Now at this point what I do is get the bone folder and I just lightly, and I do mean lightly, give it a bit of a twirl. Give it a bit of a twirl. Now we've got to add our brads in here to hold our handles in place. So I like to go in about 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to go, so I'm going to use that as my, and I use a paper piercer just to make the hole. If you've got a really tiny punch, handheld punch, you can use that. So you can see how tiny. We're just going to be using a real little brad, and then we're just going to go in just about there. Then what I do is I just sort of gently, because I really don't want to fold, and so it goes through exactly the same place the other side. I'm trying hard not to really make a fold because I want to keep that bow in there. So once you've done that, just give it a bit of a bounce so you're not getting a definite fold by pushing them together like that. So now, unfortunately Stampin' Up! Don't have any current little brads, but I just take one of my, I'm going to be putting it in like that, but it's going to be on the inside, but I'm just going to be putting it down to there, and then I'm just going to be adding the brad. And the same that side. So I want it to be down there. So I'm just going to add the brad. And then just separating the brad at the back so that it's going to stay in place. And then I just bring this one over, and it's just going to go inside like that over the hole. About the same. might just get my paper piercer and just go through the cardstock, the Early Espresso cardstock, just to make it a bit easier for me to get the brad in. And then I'm just separating it at the back, because we're going to be putting a piece of trim over this inside. It is a bit fiddly, but I think it just finishes off the tote bag nicely. So just separating them at the back. So that's one handle, just one to go. So I'm just going to hold that about there, and I'm going to just put a little bit of a hole into the Early Espresso, so it's just a bit easier to get the brad in. And then just separate it at the back. And like, these could be used for anything, like you could have a really nice gift wrapped up in cellophane and then pop it in this little tote bag. So just our last brad going in now. Just trying to separate it at the back. And keep it in focus at all the same time. It's a bit of a challenge. So there we've got our little handles on. That's the back. That's the front. So we're finished with our brads and our paper piercer. Now this is a very fiddly part. What we want to do is we want to put a piece of tear and tape all the way around. So I'll start as I did on the fold at the back and just go as close to the top as you can. And you want to go over the brad, because that's the whole idea. We're going to cover the brad. It is a bit fiddly, and if you don't want to add the trim inside, that's up to you. But especially when I'm getting orders, I do like to add the trim. Just finishes off the card, and you never know who else might see your tote bags after you've given them to your customer, and you might get someone else wanting you to make one. So I just think it's nice if you can finish it off nicely. So I'm just going to bring that over the handle like that. So also what I'm going to do is just peel off where I started so that I can overlap that tear and tape a little bit, and then I'm just going to snip that off. Okay, and then all I'm going to do then is just peel that totally off the inside, so you've got your tear and tape inside, and now all we need to do is add our last trim. Now I'm going to have how I had the trim this way, I'm going to have it this way on the inside, because the leaves are on the inside, so it will just start at the back. And we're just going to sorry that I went out of camera there. Just just do a little bit at a time, and just try and don't worry about where your tear and tape is. Just line up your trim to the top on the inside. Once you've done a few, it does become pretty easy. And the one thing that I should have done there is just put a bit of tear and tape on the last bit instead of having to be a magician and trying to stay in focus for you. So I just want to put a piece of tear and tape on that last piece, which I should have done before I started, but that's okay. And just snip that piece of tear and tape off. I'm just going to peel. I do make things hard for myself sometimes, and I know you can't see what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is peeling that little bit of tear and tape off, just so that that little tab I had there, you might be able to just see that little tab, so it's going to go down and look nice and finished. And that's our tote bag, our Mel themed tote bag. Okay, now I'll just show you inside so you can see where I put the trim around the inside, and it's over the brads, so I think it just finishes it off. And then I've just got, you can just see the two brads there. So you just need to use just little tiny brads. You don't need bulky brads. And that's the underneath where we made our, when we started off and we made the bottom of the tote bag. So you can see inside, and they're quite easy to make really. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and you could add a little bit of ribbon on here if you wanted to. So that's my original one with the thank you note cards, and this is the Mel theme one that we've done today. So that's the front of it. Okay, so I hope you'll give them a try, and in my next video I will come back and show you how to do your note cards and give you all the measurements. So I'll just repeat the measurements for you for the tote bag. And this holds note cards, not full-size cards. It holds note cards. And so the designer series paper that we started off with was 4 inches by 12 inches. And then we had 3 trim pieces, and they were 12 inches long by ½ an inch. And then our handles were used early espresso, and they were 8½ inches by ½ an inch. And then when we made the bottom of our tote bag, that was also in early espresso, and that was 5¼ inches by 2½ inches, and then scored at ½ an inch on all sides. And then we just needed our brads and our tear and tape. So there we go. I've given you all the measurements, so I hope that you'll give them a try. They are just so much fun, and every one you do using different designer series paper, they just come out so differently. So thank you for spending some of your time with me today, and until next time, happy crafting.